Welcome back to the Kumite Lifestyle Podcast, the place where real people share real stories of growth, resilience, and pushing past personal limits. Today's guest brings an incredible journey filled with courage, curiosity, and the power of stepping into the unknown. Introducing Verna Darger, a women-empowered practitioner and instructor who began Jiu-Jitsu 3 years ago and quickly discovered how self-defense, confidence, and carrying yourself with purpose can reshape your entire life. From overcoming imposter syndrome to learning how to lead a room, teach effectively, and trust her own voice, her evolution is something every listener can relate to. This episode also explores Verna's unforgettable 3-month experience in Thailand, teaching English, connecting with children and families, living in a new culture and discovering parts of herself through travel, service, and independence. Her story is proof that the world opens up for those who are willing to step forward. If you're someone who values growth, adventure, jiu-jitsu, or simply hearing the journey of a young leader becoming who she was meant to be, this episode is a cannot miss. So let's sit back and let's enjoy this episode of the Kumite Lifestyle. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Kumite Lifestyle. And today we're joined by Verna Darger. I hope I said that correct.
Close enough.
All right, so tell me how to say it then, so I don't butcher that again.
Darger.
Darger?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so folks, here we have today, and Verna, like so many of my other previous guests, if you guys go back and check out the Kumite Lifestyle podcast on YouTube, you've noticed that I've had quite a few martial artists, and a lot of them being jiu-jitsu. And Verna and I actually met through jiu-jitsu. It was 2 summers ago, right? Because we both got our certification for Women Empowered, and we didn't get a chance to connect deeply that weekend just because there's so much going on, but I got, a chance to know a little bit about you after the fact. And one of the things that I really want to go over today is, some of your travels, because man, like if you go to your Instagram, like I feel like you're constantly traveling or you're always out, exploring hikes and adventures, which I think is pretty cool. And for those watching, the Kumite Lifestyle isn't just for, martial artists, but for everyday people and those that are kind of paving a way for their own successes and, of course, learning from their own losses, which I'm sure we all can, all relate to. But Verna, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And how's it going?
Thanks for having me. I feel honored that you think my story is interesting enough to share. So
Yeah.
thank you.
So absolutely. Yeah. When I go down my checklist, I'm thinking, man, like who can I bring on that can just, not only share their story, but things that they've accomplished and, been able to do at such a young, stage in your adult life. And one of the things I want to talk about is your recent trip to Thailand. And for those watching, Thailand was actually the country where I was born from. And I know you had the opportunity to go over there, which had to have been amazing. But before we start there, let's kind of pinpoint to where we actually met, like I said, at Grace University. So when did you start your jujitsu journey? Because I always like to ask my guests, that are jujitsu practitioners of kind of when they started and why they started in the first place.
So I started jujitsu 3 years ago. Me and my best friend, started in a women empowered seminar here in St. George, Utah. We just walked in. It's actually funny because we got into jujitsu because we wanted to travel. And her mom was like, "You guys are not going anywhere unless you know how to defend yourselves." So she was like forcing us to find some kind of self-defense. We seen just like a simple Instagram ad. We went in there and then just did the Women Empowered seminar, and we were so hooked. We were so hooked. So we've both been training ever since. Currently in the master cycle of our school, so just in the advanced jujitsu there. So yeah, just been training for the last 3 years, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's awesome that you started with the reason for traveling, which we'll talk
Mhm.
about. But I think anyone that is an avid traveler or maybe that's something that they want to do, especially for the new year, since we're kind of closing out 2025, is definitely knowing how to defend yourself because there's so many people out there, a large percentage of the population, I'm sure they don't know self-defense. And isn't it amazing how there's people that, do what, you've done traveling and exploring that don't know anything about any lick of how to defend themselves. It's
Yeah.
crazy because my brain can't process that way just because I've been doing self-defense for so long, but I'm sure you would agree there. So what was life before jujitsu? Like, so imagine that you're traveling and you didn't know jujitsu. Would you feel, I don't know, safer, or would you kind of just go through life like, like nothing bad's ever going to happen to me?
Yeah, so I actually have people ask me about this all the time, whether it's like people who have goals to travel or even just my little sisters who they ask all the time like what martial art should I do? Like just all of the questions because for someone who's not familiar with like jujitsu or why it's the best self-defense for women specifically, everyone's just like the world of martial arts and self-defense is so huge and so hard to understand. It's like where do I even start, right? And the thing that I always explain is like, obviously, I prefer jujitsu and I would recommend jujitsu, especially for women for self-defense. But learning how to carry yourself is so much more important than the jujitsu that you have in your back pocket or whatever martial art that you train with. So just getting in the environment of self-defense and starting to like how you carry yourself is so much more important in my opinion. So I always just recommend like whatever calls to you, go do that. Get in the environment. Just start learning how to carry yourself. Because I personally think no matter what martial art you get into for self-defense, whatever's available to you, no matter what that is, being in the environment to learn how to carry yourself is what's important. Because even though I've been training for 3 years, I'm still aware enough to know that there are probably scenarios that my jujitsu is not specifically like good enough to defend myself, right? But the way that I carry myself is my first line of defense so that hopefully I will never need my jujitsu, right? So learning to carry yourself is more important um, than the actual techniques that you learn. So that it matters, but learning the mindset, the confidence, the situational awareness, all the different things that you will learn in most martial arts, that's very important. The actual techniques come second in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
No, like I love how you said how you carry yourself because, I think and you and you also said something where it's hard to explain or describe what we do. And I'm 1,000% like I agree with you there because when people ask me like, oh, what's jujitsu or what's karate, like I know the answer. Like
yeah.
you know the answer because we see it
Hmm.
from a totally different lens and perspective. So I think you summed it up in a way that's efficient, meaning like it just gives you that opportunity and that advantage point to carry yourself because man, so many times you see like especially kids, like in our bully proof program. And for those watching, so when you hear bully proof or women empowered or master cycle, those are the names of the programs that Grace University has to offer. And you can always, of course, go back and of course, research that. But, we're talking about a specific program, but it's all jujitsu based. So when you talk about how you present yourself, it really starts at a young age as well. Because, I
Hmm.
mean, if we can agree, for those watching as well, like who do bullies target? People that look like they can't defend themselves. So when you talk about how you present yourself, especially as an adult and as a female, that definitely does carry weight because, anytime I go out in public, and I'm sure you're the same way, I watch how people compose themselves. I watch how, and not just ladies, but just any human being, how they walk into a room or they head down. You know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
crazy how people don't even realize though that's that's the early signs of being a target. But it's awesome
Hmm.
that you've been able to develop that, and you're so very articulate. You know, um, and explaining that. So I'm curious, now that you've been doing Women Empowered for a while, has there ever been a moment that you don't mind sharing where not necessarily the physicality of jujitsu, but just being aware where it did save your life? Maybe you were at a restaurant or anywhere where you noticed something and you said, you know what, that doesn't look like a smart decision.
That's a really good question. There's not been a scenario that I've noticed something that I would identify as like a threat of that level. Um, but hmm, with traveling through airports, through um, even just locally doing things, I would say I can't think of any specific situations. I think that one of the biggest things I've learned is boundary setting because that's a huge part of self-defense, at least the way that we teach it. And so the boundary setting aspect that translates through every area of life is huge. Or even just with when you're out traveling, things like that, eye contact,
Hmm.
making sure that you um, kind of just scan your surroundings, making sure that if you needed to escape, you know where to go, like dressing sensibly, a lot of common sense stuff. But as far as the jujitsu, I'm trying to think. Um, no, I think it's mostly my verbal self-defense has been pretty good. So I haven't really needed to use my techniques in like a street scenario. So not that I can think of. If I think of one, I'll let you know.
No, that's awesome. And you said it best yourself. Like we train jujitsu so we don't have to actually physically use it, but we're always
Hopefully.
using our jujitsu. Like we're always using our self-defense all the time, just like you said, airports and just being out. And I love how you said about boundary setting because most people won't set a boundary that they don't feel like they can actually enforce. And that's
Yeah.
where the physicality of jujitsu comes in. So no,
Yep.
that's awesome that you've been able to kind of A, use that in your everyday life, but and B, more importantly, be able to kind of share that and also articulate that in words where, for the viewer watching, because I want people to understand, like, you are worth defending. And, we hear that a lot in our culture of jujitsu. And kind of going back to what you're saying, like, you find a community, a sense of, like-minded people. And I know that you have that at your certified training center that you train at, because the culture is big, because that can really make or, break any type of group or environment. So
A
I want to
hundred
talk.
percent.
Yeah, so typically, right, when you're training, um, like walk us through like what's a everyday jujitsu class like for you at where you
Mm.
are right now at your stage of training?
As a student or an instructor?
That's a great question. So let's start from a student perspective.
Perfect. Currently, I have my blue belt test scheduled for coming up in December. So right now it's a lot of
Like this month,
focusing
December?
on, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
focusing on energy efficiency and just like building my stamina and, finding the confidence. Struggling a little bit with imposter syndrome of like, do I deserve this? Like, um,
Hmm.
not sure about that one yet, but we're trying. And I trust my instructor. So I Jake and Melissa here in St. George are great. So I'll trust them. But yeah, just going in, really grateful to be there. The training environment's really fun, and I have a lot of friends in there who I really trust training with. So that also helps.
Yeah,
But yeah, currently just trying to soak in as much as I can. I'm not able to train as much as I used to. So it makes when I do make it in there uh, once or twice a week feel more valuable.
sure. Yeah, because as they say, time's the one thing we can't get back, and
Yeah,
so you'll make the most of it. Um, yeah, so you just talked about imposter syndrome, and it's crazy that you mentioned that because I think I think we all face that and feel that at some point in our lives, the different versions of the different chapters that we, place ourselves in. So for you, why do you feel that type of imposter syndrome? Is it your training, or is it just you feel like you're not ready to, I guess, level up, as you say? Because I have my own kind of theories and stories about that, but it always strikes, like, I always get fascinated when people bring that up on their own accord, like, oh, imposter syndrome because XYZ. So what is it for you well, actually, like, what is imposter syndrome to you, and how's that kind of resonating in your life right now?
okay, that's a really good question. To me, imposter syndrome, and at least how I feel in this current situation, is I feel like having a blue belt is like I almost have this pressure that now I have to live up to it.
Hmm.
And so it makes me feel like as an imposter if I feel like my standard of living up to it is not being met. So I think I need to like manage my expectation of like you should be this because ultimately in the journey of jujitsu you shouldn't be anything, right? It's a it's different for all of us. So one blue belt's going to be a lot better in one area than another, and that's okay. All of us are on a different jujitsu journey with our strengths and weaknesses. But I think that I've been a white belt for 3 years. I mean, I have the Gracie University has their special belts, the pink belt and the combatives belt, but ultimately I've been a white belt for 3 years. And so moving up, like your blue belt is something you look up to for so long. Or, any belt progression is going to be something that you're looking forward to. And getting up to it, I think I just have this image in my mind that it's when you start approaching a goal and you're like, oof, I see all my weaknesses. I know the places I still have so much work to do in. I set really high standards for myself and I have a crazy work ethic. So I'm like, I could be so much better. I know blue belts who are way better than me in this area, in this area, in this area. And I'm like, if I have a blue belt, like, I don't know if I deserve it. I know all my weaknesses. I know all the things I still need to work on. Maybe if I fix those, then I would deserve it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of that.
No, that's a great summary. And you said expectation, and it just reminded me of something that my instructor Howard Steele, kind of reinforces to me all the time. You know, there's a difference between expectation and reality, and it's a fine line because, at the end of expectation and reality itself is disappointment. And I think a lot of times when we expect so much, it's because we're probably, without even realizing it, we're comparing ourselves to other people. And you said, and I love that you said jujitsu is our own journey. And as I've gotten older and I guess more wiser in my short time on this planet, I've realized that it really is a journey in a sense where belts don't really mean anything. I mean, I'm a purple belt now and I'm kind of in the queue at some point to get my brown, but like I'd be lying if I didn't, feel the same exact way that you are. But you just have to like say like, no, like I am good at this because I train every day and sure, I'm not a world champion, but who effing cares,
Yeah, exactly.
and I can guarantee you that all those other world champs out there, they're feeling the same, if not more pressure than we are, because now they're chasing something that's important, right? If that's the route that you're going, but whether it's just the pursuit of winning a gold medal or just the pursuit, as you say, of getting better, that expectation is always going to linger. And then I think people just have to be realistic because the blue belt you wear is going to be different than the blue belt that I wear because our paths are. And I think, you know, I don't know. I think as an instructor, sometimes it's a hard conversation that we have to have with ourselves. And I'm sure you've seen it where it's like, does this person deserve it? And I'm like, yeah, if they're showing up and they're trying, that's all we can, ask from them. It's just crazy when I hear stories from jiu-jitsu instructors saying like, "Oh, that student doesn't, deserve it." And then I'm thinking, "Well, are they training every day?" Well, yeah. I'm like, "Okay, that's where the conversation stops." Because like what more do you want from them? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah,
Especially
that's a really
older
good point.
students. Yeah, because we have some students that are like 50, 60, 70. You can't expect them to do what we can or someone who's 19. And that took me a while to like understand. But when I finally realized like, oh, like a 7-year-old blue belt, it's not going to be able to do what you can do. It's like they just can't. So you have to weigh it, kind of the metrics a little bit differently. It's almost like, are they doing what they have to do or can do for their level and kind of
I
going
really
back.
like, oh, sorry.
No,
I
go
really
ahead.
like that you pointed that out. And as you were talking, it made me realize something because you started talking about it from an instructor's perspective.
Yeah.
And if I think about it from an instructor's perspective, as an instructor in Women Empowered, I would look at someone like myself and be like, 100% they deserve it. It wouldn't even be a question in my mind.
Yeah.
But then just realizing, like, why don't I reflect that same mindset on my instructor looking at me,
Yeah.
and just trust that. Like, I don't know. I just really like that you pointed that out that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And a lot of it just comes from own, personal experiences. Like right now at our academy, we have our upcoming promotion ceremony coming up in a couple of weeks. So we're doing evaluations, combatives tests, very similar to what I'm sure you guys are doing. And, it's like this time of year, it's like like I still get the same questions from students like, oh, coach, I don't deserve this. I'm like, how come? And then they always say, oh, well, I'm not good enough or I'm not coming enough. And then I say, no, bro, you are because boom, here's your card. So it's like, I don't know. I think because when you care enough about something, and I notice that the students that ask those questions, they're the ones that are always there. constantly all the time. Very rarely do I get a student that never shows up, maybe once a week, that's coming to me and say, "Hey Nick, do I deserve this?" Because they know deep down that they don't deserve it just yet. So I encourage as an instructor and for anyone watching out there, like I pay very close attention to the students that are very engaged and are asking like, "Hey, like am I ready? Am I ready?" It's like when you're ready, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's all arbitrary, I think for me where I'm at in my journey as a brown as a you know future potential brown belt and black belt, I think the only thing that I care about as far as the belt itself is who's strapping me up. I mean, I want my instructor, to strap me up. I don't want anyone else. I don't care about your last name. I don't care how big you are, you know, in the whole scheme of jujitsu, because I think where you come from definitely plays a big part in that too. And I'm sure you would agree.
I do agree, definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the instructor certification. So for anyone out there, so the Women Empowered certification is the ability to teach women jujitsu, right? So kind of in hindsight, but anyone that's gone through that process, it's tough because not only are you learning to teach, but you're learning to teach in an efficient way. And I know we both can kind of, measure that kind of almost parallel because we went through it at the same time. But what was that process like for you, to become an instructor? Was that something, well, was teaching something that you wanted to do, or is that maybe your instructor saw something, potential in you? And like 1,000%, I know they did, but what was that conversation like when it was kind of your turn to go through that, I guess, that initiation to teach?
That's a really good question. I haven't reflected on this for quite a while, so this will be fun. Um, it was around the time I got my pink belt. I'd been training for about a year, like eight. I think I got my pink belt at about 8 or 9 months. Um, and it was definitely a push from my instructors. So Jake and Melissa Johnston run the Gracie Certified Training Center here in St. George. And they approached me about it and asked if I would be interested. And I was like, because it's one journey to go from having zero knowledge and experience and struggling with confidence as a young, how I don't even remember how old I was 3 years ago. And you just finding you're learning how to be an adult, let alone a confident adult, right?
Yeah,
I think I was like 19 or 20. Um,
that's crazy.
so it's a journey to go from there to being confident, having like a pink belt and being like, okay, like I know some things about some things, and the journey from there to then being like, I know it good enough to share it it's a whole nother level. So I was really scared. I was like, I think so. That'd be really cool. But they were really good about encouraging. Me and my best friend Susie did it at the same time. So it was good to have a partner, and huge shout out to her for, being my training dummy and my biggest supporter through everything jujitsu. Um, but yeah, so they approached us together, and with a little bit of coaxing, we were like, yeah, sure, like we'll do this. And so we did, and it was a lot of fun. It was really hard.
Yeah, it
And
is
then
tough.
even it's a lot.
And like I don't think
Um,
people realize that either, from, outside looking in. As instructors, they think, "Oh yeah, like of course you're teaching because you're there every day." Because I guess that might be the norm kind of, I guess universally across the board, with jujitsu,
mhm,
where, Grace University, our standards are very high when it comes to teaching. And it's not to say that other affiliations don't have the same standard, of course. I can only base it or I can only project it based on what we know, of course. But sorry, not to
exactly.
cut you off.
Oh, no worries. The other thing too that I want to point out about the Women Empowered, specifically the program that I went through for my instructor training, they do a really good job at addressing. So, like, how I talked about the way that you carry yourself and all of these things that are your first line of defense before your jujitsu should even be like the protocol in a self-defense scenario.
Yeah.
They do a really, really good job at teaching you how to understand that. Whether it's teaching you like the stages that an assault could happen or all of these different things, like being triggered by certain things. There's so much that you go through that's not jujitsu that just it really framed jujitsu in a completely different light for me. And now, as an instructor, I really try to project that out because that's not something that we talk about a lot. Like, it's funny because I point it out all the time that, especially for women, we're very confident. We'll do a triangle choke, a rear naked choke, 100% confidence by every woman in the room, knowing like I could kill this person. Like I could take someone's life. And we're practicing it with like full hype. But then it comes to a class where we're setting boundaries
Yeah.
with someone and everyone's shrinking in the corner and like I am uncomfortable. I don't want to learn this. This is new to me. This is like completely foreign and super uncomfortable. And it's just really funny to me how comfortable we can be breaking someone's arm, breaking someone's leg. Like, I'm going to choke this person out. But then it comes to the simple things like setting a boundary or practicing eye contact or yelling and screaming for help or having those conversations where it's like, what do you do if someone approaches you in this way? How do you stand up and set a boundary and see if they're going to cross it? Those things are really, really hard to practice, yet that's what's most important.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you never need that choke, right?
Yeah.
But we spend 3 times the amount practicing that choke than practicing that boundary setting. So
Yeah.
just looking into all the subtle differences of what realistically is going to help a woman in a self-defense scenario and just trying to figure out how to teach that, how to empower women with the tools that are actually going to help them and not this um superficial, I could choke anyone out because ultimately we most likely will be the weaker, smaller person in a self-defense scenario. So just trying to project like a really empowered, confident, and realistic way to defend ourselves, starting with how we carry ourselves, starting with how we set boundaries, the awareness that we have, and just all those more subtle things. And I will say the Women Empowered certification program was really good at pointing all of those things out and helping me understand them. Um, and yeah, just been building on that as well. So it's been really good. That's a
Yeah.
really, really long answer, but
No, I love it. And man, you pointed something out that I didn't even think about as far as teaching jujitsu. You're so right. We're so quick to, apply submission or, grab someone, clinch them. But yeah, we do struggle to use our words. And I think as an instructor, at least, from what I can, share from my own journey real quick is that I can articulate because I've been in that role to teach, but most people like aren't accustomed to that. I mean, we have people that run businesses. We have business people, real estate people that are in here, and I'm just naming them off because they're used to talking to people, but you know, it doesn't mean it's going to be efficient, because we know that sure you can have students, you can be a black belt, but doesn't mean you can teach. So that ability to talk, that's actually more difficult than what I think most people are willing to admit. I heard something a long time ago that more people would rather die than public speak. Isn't that crazy?
that
But
is crazy.
but it goes back to what you're saying, and yes, it's women, it's any human being. We're capable of physical damage and harm to whatever degree that we choose. But why is it that we can't use our words or, set that boundary? And I'm so glad you said that because,
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, because subconsciously it was there and like I was kind of aware of it, but for you to kind of bring that to the forefront. I know sometimes when we teach our bullyproof kids, how to, power stance, power finger, and we teach them to use their words. It's like, yeah, it's funny, it's silly, but it, I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to kind of ponder that for a while. It's like, why is it that we can arm lock you, or like you could arm lock me, no problem, but if I said, all right, now use your words and negotiate, you know what I mean?
Everyone freezes. It's
Yeah.
common. It happens to every single one of us.
But I think just like anything, just practicing it,
Hmm.
it's like practicing teaching in front of a room because anyone that's taught efficiently and correctly, like it's one thing to know the subject matter, but when you're teaching in front of your I find like when you're teaching in front of your peers, that's the hardest because I
A
can teach in
hundred percent.
because I can teach in front of strangers and I've done it. I can teach in front of kids I don't know, but I've noticed that when I'm teaching in front of Howard or actually it's mainly just Howard, but like but like if it's Howard But like if Howard's in the room or if your instructor Jake's in the room, there's something about when the head guy or head lady is watching you. You feel like all the pressure's on you. But I look at it as no, they wouldn't have put me in this place if they didn't think that I could, perform. And like you talk about the women empowered ICP and every ICP that I go to, I make it a point to mention to the room if I can that as an assistant instructors we'll never be able to grow if our head instructors, don't give us that opportunity. So I know something that Howard has done is he'll step off the mat sometimes purposely because we have other instructors, just like I know that you guys do. And whenever the head instructor is not there, we perform so much better.
Hmm.
Uh, like I don't know what it is.
I definitely understand that. It was really hard being a new instructor and giving myself the permission to be that leadership type person in a room full of people who I'd been training with for the last year. It
Yeah,
was very hard to kind of move from being a fellow student to now I'm the leader of this room and I need to control the energy, and be able to, be that person. It was really, really hard. And
sure.
it took me a few months to be able to kind of just like switch from like, okay, this is student mode, this is instructor mode, and just be able to find the confidence to lead a class in that way. It took me a few months, but ultimately, I do want to say this because so many people that I have heard, fellow instructors, talk about how hard it is to teach with your instructor in the room. So for me, that's Jake Johnston.
Yeah.
And it is so common with every single one of us. And I think maybe this will help a few people out there if they're struggling with the same thing. Ultimately, if our goal is to get better, we want them there. We want that pressure. I want that because I know if I can perform well in the highest pressure situation, think of how good you're going to be not in that pressure situation. So if you're avoiding that pressure, like that is an opportunity. So why are we avoiding that? Right? And ultimately, if our instructor does want to help us and does want us to grow, they're not going to be there like, oh, she said that wrong. Like she's such a loser. Like our instructor is never there with that mindset. And if they are, ultimately, they're just a crappy person, in my opinion. But I don't feel like avoiding that pressure, maybe in the beginning, because I definitely did. But if I could just say, my instruction really went to another level when I stopped trying to avoid that and instead made it a challenge. And instead I made it like, oh, he's watching. I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna rock it. And like he's gonna leave the mat being like, wow,
Yeah.
I just set new goals for myself and turn that into a challenge and an opportunity and use it to push yourself. Like really it will take you to the next level if you see it as an opportunity instead of a burden that you
Mm,
have that pressure.
that's a
So
great
that's just
point.
a little note. If you're wanting to push yourself, that is the best way you can do it.
Yeah. And I will
So,
add to that too. So I totally agree with you 1,000% about kind of putting yourself in those situations to improve. And then the caveat off that, once you've built that confidence, to any head instructor out there, any head coach, step away so your assistant can fully progress as well. Because there's one thing about
yes.
coaching with your instructor, but at some
Hmm.
point, if you really want to kind of know how good you are after the fact, because like you said, like you'll perform so like the way you said it was, if you can perform at best with the head instructor there, imagine what you're doing when they're not there. So I think at some point, the head instructor also needs to learn to step out and be
And
like,
to trust you.
yeah,
Yes.
and be like, you know what? I don't have to be the guy or the girl anymore. I have an assistant where that, can step in. It reminds me of a story that my karate instructor used to tell me like a long time ago. So I used to compete. I still do. Um, Not as much, but he used to say, and this is Master Rigby, he would say, Nick, like anytime that I was competing, whether I was on deck waiting like to go next, he would watch the competition and say, yeah, that was pretty good, but wait till they see mine. So I kind of use that as an instructor. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, Howard's here. Wait till he sees this slice, or wait till he sees my class. And you said it best yourself. So that's cool that we've had kind of similar mindsets. And it's nice to know that as instructors, we're all facing the same type of fears and emotions, because we think
Mhm.
sometimes at our school, it's like, oh, I bet this only happens here. But no, every time I go to like ICPs, or I'm talking to my friends that teach, like whether it's the kids' classes or issues with like whatever, it's like, oh, so this is pretty common universally. So it's not just me
Mhm.
feeling this, or, us like, dealing with certain things at the academy. So
Another really fun
yeah,
little fact on that same note is ultimately we become that person for our assistant instructors or for new instructors. If you've been an instructor for a while, which you've been an instructor a lot longer than I have,
yeah.
you are now that person who's putting pressure on someone new. Like
Mhm.
we forget that we also become that person who someone feels nervous because we're watching them teach. And if we look at them, we're watching, we're admiring, we're noticing all the things. Ultimately, when I watch another instructor, especially a new instructor, it helps me learn. It helps me grow. I'm observing like, oh, I love the way they said that. Like I'm not just sitting there like judging them, which is ultimately what we're all so scared of. Um, but they could be feeling the exact same thing that we feel from our like that person in our mind. So it's kind of like if you reframe it in a way of how I watch new instructors, is probably how my instructor is watching me.
Oh yeah.
So,
That is so true, because there's levels to teaching,
mhm,
So for those watching, we teach by what's called the SPF, which I won't go too much into detail because it's kind of a closed matter, of course. But for those that can understand, it's a teaching format, and once you know it, then you get like almost should get better at it. But there's levels to how you can use it, and one of the ways that I was reminded, so again, going back to my instructor, he's also one of the Gracie Survival Tactics instructor. And years ago, he was telling me that a fellow GST instructor was telling him that the way we teach with the SPF is kind of like, imagine you're on a trail, right? So it's kind of like what the end point is, because there's different like steps or different demo slices, if you will. But it's okay to kind of go this way, but as long as you know that you can go back to the trail, that's what makes a good instructor, because anyone that
mm,
doesn't teach with the way that we do, they're all over the place. And I used to teach that way. And I used to think I'm pretty good because there's students watching me and they're kind of doing what I'm asking them to do. But now that we know how to teach the way we do, it's like I kind of like it kind of irks my soul when I see people teaching not bad because they don't know it's bad, or
yeah,
incorrectly. But that trail analogy always helps, because once you get good, you can kind of veer a little bit, tell a little bit of a story, and then go right back to the trail, and then tell them what to do from there. So that's helped me. So for anyone like watching this, just I don't know, just give yourself some grace, all right, and like just know that like I feel like the students are there because they believe in us.
yeah. And as long like for instructors, for new instructors especially, the thing that really got me through is I have to be bad long enough to get good. It's the old cliche, like just be bad long enough to get good, like, trust the process.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. So true. It's been also watching your journey too, because I know sometimes I'll see you post a story and you're teaching with Susie, or just in class. I'm thinking, yeah, like she definitely loves what she's doing right now.
well, thank you. I definitely do. Women Empowered is teaching the women in there is very fulfilling and something that I go back to. It really grounds me and, no matter what else is going on anywhere in my life, like just always going back to there where I always tell everyone that being on the mat's like being in meditation. You
Mm.
just forget about everything else outside and your mind's just completely focused in. Partly because it's the energy, but partly too, it's like if you're not focused, you're not gonna, be able to do the next move. So you're, kind of forced to be present. And I think that's
Oh
really
yeah.
good for us. And yeah, I love, love, love Women Empowered. That class is really special to me. And it's so important to me to be able to go back to looking at who I was and what Women Empowered did for me, especially becoming an instructor, but even before that, um, being able to share that with other women, especially younger women who, and I mean, even I guess like age doesn't even matter really. It's like
Mhm.
there's no especially. It's all women. Being able to give the same things that I learned from Women Empowered back to other women is like one of the coolest opportunities I've ever had. And
Yeah.
just the gratitude that I have for the opportunity for that is just, I don't know, it means a lot to me. And I don't know if any of my students or anybody sees this, I hope they know how much I really care about that class. And yeah, really proud of everyone in Women Empowered and the way I've seen them grow at every Gracie certified training center. Um, yeah, just really proud of them. I had the opportunity to there was a woman who was in St. George temporarily, and she took some private lessons from me. She's from another school, states away, and she just stopped in. She wanted to keep her training, even though she was here for only a few months. So we connected, did private lessons for a few weeks. She went back home to her gym. And just a couple weeks ago, she sent me the photo of her pink belt she had just gotten. And it was so special to just like the connections are crazy and it just means a lot. It's so special. I could go on forever, but
Yeah. I've I'm I know for a fact that your students know how much you care and just
I
that
hope they
story.
do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they do. I can I don't know, maybe 99.9% guarantee that, of course. But no, and actually it shows just based on that story you shared about that lady that came and visited for a little bit, a few weeks doing private lessons, and then she sent that photo. It's like that's pretty profound because you were a huge part of that, you know, and and like I think that's the legacy that as instructors that we're trying to leave. All right, so I want to go back in time now to a question that I asked early and something that you said. You started jujitsu for self-defense so you could travel. So now
Yes.
I want to get into some of your adventures and some of the places that, you've been, fortunate enough to be able to travel to. And one that really sticks to mind is Thailand. And
Mhm.
when because I remember I saw something on your story. I said, "Oh, this is freaking awesome!" And you had something. It was kind of like a not a GoFundMe, or maybe it was something like that, where like people could help fund your trips, which I'm all for doing that. And I remember, I think I contributed, some amount, and I was more than happy to like, do that because deep down I was like, man, I'm a little jealous that, you get to go to Thailand. But man, like, what was that experience like? And well, actually, how did you get involved with, going to Thailand? And then I want to kind of jump into, what you learned over there and I don't know, just how much fun you had. So what, so how did the Thailand trip come about?
Okay, this is a really fun story because it also interconnects with the jujitsu story so well.
Absolutely.
Um, it was when I was younger, I always wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to travel. And I had me and my friend Susie, um, we had this big goal to do a volunteer semester. And we were looking at all these different locations, the programs, all those fun things. And we had one planned for 2020. Um,
Oh gosh.
yeah. So this was the traveling that we were planning when her mom was like, you guys have to do self-defense before you're ever able to do anything like that, which ultimately is what got us into jujitsu,
Yeah.
which is awesome. But yeah, we got into self-defense and ultimately never traveled
Yeah.
because COVID happened. Um,
The
and
whole
then
world shut down. It was crazy.
yes, yeah, so everything everything we thought we had planned for our lives kind of just disappeared.
Hmm.
But I still kept that, the goal. And so last year I just decided I was like, you know what, why would I not do this? It's something I wanted to do for so long. And it just felt right. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do it. So
And you
I
did.
applied for the program and there was a couple of different countries. I wasn't actually able to choose the country I wanted to go to. I had
Oh,
like three top choices. It was like Poland, Thailand, and like Peru, something like that.
can I guess?
Um,
Was it Peru you wanted to go to?
My top choice was Poland, and
Oh,
my second was Thailand.
I was close. It started with a P.
Yeah.
So Poland, okay.
Um, yeah, I thought it would be really cool to do the whole live in Europe for a semester.
Yeah.
Um, and partially because they speak English a lot
Mm,
already, so I thought that would be
more
easier,
efficient.
but
Yeah.
ultimately I'm glad I went somewhere they didn't because that experience was super profound to live in a culture you understand like nothing. So ultimately, yeah, I didn't have a choice of where I went, and then they told me Thailand. So yeah, I taught at a school for 3 months, a full semester last spring over in Pitchit, Thailand. It was a lot of fun. It
It's
was
amazing.
so fun.
Yeah. So you get to Thailand, and I don't know, I mean, I can only imagine the nerves and the excitement kind of all at the same time because you're basically living in a whole different country, which could kind of be like a whole different world, if you will,
Oh yeah.
if you never ever traveled outside your hometown, which I would encourage anyone if you've never done that to, get off and, at least go to
Yes.
another state if you haven't. But yeah, so you get to Thailand. So let's talk about like your first week there because and like I'm sure you remember your whole trip, of course, or like parts of your trip. But when you first got there, what was kind of like that, shock and awe for you?
It was hard. So I went with a group of seven other girls that I met in the airport. And then we all lived, there was like two big rooms that we all lived in on like bunk beds. So not only are you
Is it called a
in,
hostel? Is it a hostel that you stayed at?
no, we
Kind of
had like an
similar.
apartment that the school provided for the teachers.
Nice.
When we traveled throughout the country on the weekends and like vacation periods, we did stay in a lot of hostels, but we
Yeah,
had like our own little apartment area. Um,
that's cool.
so yeah, it was like new experiences and from every angle. Like every single thing about life was a new experience. Like
Hmm.
it's really hard to explain for someone who has never experienced it. Like first off, there's like a 14-hour time difference from home, so you are very isolated because all the hours you're awake, everyone that you could be on the phone with is asleep. So
Hmm.
you're forced to be present in complete new environments, new food, new language. You're living with new people. Um, and that seems really scary to people, but it is also the most freeing thing I've ever done. Like you are with yourself, you learn, you meet parts of yourself you would probably never meet otherwise, right? So I highly recommend travel is the single biggest thing that can change your life. Um, I loved it. That first week was really hard. Um, the teaching was the hardest part. It, teaching is hard no matter what. But yeah, I learned a lot. And weirdly, it's so crazy how much it intertwines with jujitsu. Because learning, like, you wouldn't think that teaching kids English would translate to teaching jujitsu, but it
Yeah.
really does. Like, I think that was another big breakthrough moment for me to kind of learn how to like lead a room. And I just practiced on little kids and it was a lot of fun. So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
awesome. So you're there for 3 months. So like when you were teaching the kids, what specifically were you teaching them?
So we taught English through interaction. So we didn't do a lot like we taught from like pre-kindergarten. Some of these kids were like 2 years old. So you're pretty much just playing with the kids all the
Mhm.
way up to about, I would say 5 or 6. So pretty young kids. So it's not a lot of like schoolwork like we would think of schoolwork.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of activity-based learning, and then teaching through context. So just having kids, repeat what you say, and then, like a reward system for, their effort. Um,
Yeah.
it was really hard, and kids are a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. Especially
and
kids that don't speak the same language.
exactly. Exactly. It's really fun. It's so special. All the things that were really hard are the things that I look back on now and have just so much I just miss him so much. And I had a name tag that I wore because each of us had to have like a name tag when we taught, and there was a big butterfly sticker on the end or like the edge of my name tag, and all the kids would call me Teacher Butterfly. And so now it's like I look back on that now, and it's so many special little things where in the moment, you're just like, I just want to be home. All these kids are yelling at me and I don't understand them, and
Yeah.
every, pencils are flying and I might get stabbed, but it was crazy.
Yeah, and I think also, and maybe I'm just projecting, but I can say that when I was adopted from Thailand, so kind of, almost switching roles. So being someone born from that country and then moving to the United States, I remember, or at least the way my parents talk about it is I couldn't really speak a lick of English in the beginning, of course,
Mhm.
naturally. But the way we, as humans, the way we kind of show emotion, whether it's through body language or kind of our expressions and our mood, if you will, that is universal. So I'm sure that even though you couldn't understand what the kids were saying initially, you could read what they were either trying to express, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, it was really fun. There was one kid I connected with especially. Um,
Was he the one you
and
sent a
I,
picture of? Because I remember you would share some photos with me a
yeah,
while back when I was asking like how your trip's going.
hmm Yeah,
That's
his name
awesome.
was Rit, and he would always say, Teacher Verna is my favorite. And he would just say that over and over. And he would tell the other teachers, like, I like you, but Teacher Verna is my favorite. And he was such a cutie. And I would play with him a lot after school. And I remember one time his dad came up to me, and his dad could only speak very basic English. And he came and asked me, he says, does Rit actually speak English? And I said, yeah. And he was using, his phone to kind of translate, but also speaking as much English as he could. And he said, he won't speak English in front of me. Um, so he was just really looking for, like, he's like, I want to hear my son speak English, but his son refused to speak English with him.
Mm,
Um, so he asked me if I could try to have a conversation with Rit while he kind of like hid behind like a tree or like around the corner so he could actually hear his son speak English.
yeah.
So that was really fun and just really special to see the way that the parents, they were like, they trusted us a lot. And then to just see how meaningful that was too. And he told me, he's like, I have a goal that my son can go to school in the United States. He can go to college and he can get a really good education in the United States. Um, and just to see, like, for me, I was like, this is a really fun semester. Like, I get to travel, I get to go to the pretty beaches in Thailand, like, all of these things. But also to see how meaningful that was. Like, this man what I am doing is helping this man's son with the future of his entire life. Like his goals for his baby, like they ride on my ability to do what I'm doing as a teacher for, 3 months. And it just really put into perspective, like how important the little things are and like the opportunities that we have and just being able to put your full effort into what you're doing. Um, because sometimes it was easy to just be like, I'm not gonna do my best as a teacher because I'm really just here to travel. And a lot of people do that, but to just really put the effort in to teaching, even on the hard days, it
Yeah.
just really put that into perspective for me. So,
Absolutely. And I'm sure that kid or that student they had a chance to work with, he's always going to remember you. And I can tell you firsthand that when I was 5 or 6 and I was learning English or in school, I had amazing, amazing teachers that I still remember to this day. Haven't talked to them, but it's okay. But there's like a print, like their memory is so ingrained in me that I'll never forget. And it goes back to what you said, like you put in that effort and you put in the time because, I say this a lot in my podcast. No one cares what you know until they know that you care. And even someone being so young and so almost like fragile, if you will, he's going to remember you. So it's nice that you left that positive impression. That
I
no,
hope so.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's the same impression that we leave in jiu-jitsu. It's just kind of, I guess you can kind of scale it and weigh it just a little bit differently because of I don't want to say circumstances, but just the situation, l- like if that makes sense. So aside from teaching, and I'm curious, when you were in Thailand, what did you, because I know there's a lot to do there, or maybe there isn't a lot. Like, I
There's
can
a
you give me
lot. Yeah.
Okay,
I would
so
say there's a lot.
so like what were some of the like the highlights or things aside from teaching that if you could write a book right now and kind of give like a synopsis, like what was like your favorite moments aside from the teaching part? Because I know you
Mhm.
took a lot of pictures and videos, and I was kind of living, vicariously through you just through your stories. But no, it just felt like you had such an amazing experience over there. And then Susie actually like met you over there too, right?
Mhm.
That's awesome. So like if that's not friendship to the core, I don't know what is. So
Yeah.
when she came, was that a surprise or did you know that she was coming?
Yeah, I knew she was coming. I extended my trip past the actual semester, and then she came over and we traveled for a little bit longer. But to just go back, a few of the moments that stand out, there's a few that I have. Um, First, just the kindness of the people in
Mhm.
Thailand. People say it's like the land of smiles or whatever they call it. I can't remember. But it's true. The people
Mm,
there are so kind. I actually had more culture shock coming back to the US from Thailand than I did going there from here. To
mm,
just get back here and realize like everyone is so mean.
yeah,
And I just really miss the openness and the kindness and the humanity of the culture. Um, but a few of the moments that stand out the most for me was there was a weekend we drove really far north in Thailand. We had a driver take us up and we stayed on this little local farm, where I think they grew peanuts. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. Um, and it was just a little farm where, you know, it's like a hostel. So there's just like a big group place that people could stay in and then they'll take you on adventures and you could go trekking. We did a trek where we just went up over the mountain on this big hike. And we picked like bark off the trees and all these fun things, and then came back to the farm and made a dye and then did like tie dye, and just like all of these things that really we learned like local like a little cooking class where we
mm,
like cooked over the fire and just did like a lot of traditional Thai I guess just learned a lot about the culture in a way that was not like touristy. So
yeah,
to just really connect with like it was a really small town. Um Obviously there's an element of the tourism because that's what we're tourists. Um but yeah, just to be able to experience that in a more, I guess it's like more intimate with the culture.
sure.
That weekend really stands out. It was so much fun. Um, let's see. Another thing that really stands out. So there was all of the other girls that I was there with flew home, and then Susie was flying in. So
Mm,
I was in Thailand completely alone at the end of the semester. I'd been there for 3 months. All the other girls had left, and Susie was not yet there.
mm,
So I was completely alone. Um, and I just remember looking around and feeling like this surreal, like I felt comfortable, I felt confident. I was like, I know my way around. It was just such a weird moment to just look around. You're in a completely foreign place, completely alone. You don't speak the language. And that moment really stands out for me because we don't know what we're capable of. We look at things, all these crazy things or things that other people do, and you're like, I could never do that. You look at somebody, you're like, I could never be alone in I would freak out. Like that would not, I would have way too much anxiety. And then, and this concept applies everywhere. Um, and then you get in that situation and you're like, oh, I'm so much more capable than I give myself credit for or even believed. And I just think that is just such a really cool moment to just acknowledge, like, wow, I am more capable than I thought. And I hope that everybody in their life has a chance to experience that where they do something or they just end up in a situation where they slow down enough to just be like, whoa, I would have never thought I could do this. And, just have the proof that you're more capable than you think to give you the courage to, keep chasing things you don't know if you're capable of.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I hope that for everybody. It's a hard to explain feeling because it makes
Yeah.
you realize like all of those things you don't know for sure if you can do,
You
you
can.
probably can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
and for you, you were like you said, you were in a country completely isolated, meaning like as far as people that you knew, of course. And
mhm.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think for every person, not just watching this, but for every human being with the opportunities that they're given, I'm a firm believer, like at least get out of your state, meaning like not your state of mind, but like, I mean, yes, what actually that too. So get out of your state of mind, but also, visit another state or another country if possible, because I feel like, I mean, there's a lot to see and I get it, some people are introverts, but I feel like when you get exposed to different cultures, whether by accident or design, you see a lot more than what was expected. And in your case, you got to experience and learn a lot about yourself that you didn't know. So that's
Yeah. I will say
that's
for,
amazing.
oh, thank you. I'll just add to that a little bit that
Yeah.
if anyone listening to this is in a hard place in their life, whether you're going through something hard, you're going through loss,
Mm.
um, you go through a bad breakup or you've just gone through something hard in your life, travel. That is the way that
Heals
it
your
just
soul.
it puts everything in your life into perspective. And it's really easy to get stuck in your own, like you said, your own state of mind. Traveling to a different place physically, you travel to a different place mentally as well. Like when you get stagnant in who you are as a human being, you need to expose yourself to new environments ultimately. And I think that naturally we should be doing that. And if you're feeling depressed or lonely or sad or grieving, obviously give yourself space to feel those feelings. But also, if traveling seems scary, it's probably a sign that you should do it. It's probably a sign that you should push yourself. There's something on the other side of that fear. There's something there. And pushing yourself to figure out what that is, I encourage that for everyone, especially young people. Um,
Yeah.
Go see what that is. Go figure it out. You can always come back home.
Yeah.
If you don't like what's on the other side, just come back.
That's so true. Yeah. That's pretty profound. I very rarely do I get lost to words on my own podcast, but that, meaning like it makes you think. It's like, man, like am I doing those things that you're saying? Or sometimes how we give other people advice, but it's like, are we actually doing that ourselves? And I can kind of relate in a sense where when I started this whole podcast originally about like 2 months ago, I had some reservations and fear too, but something was calling like, no, it's like do it, because you have a platform, like a lot of people with a lot of amazing stories like yourself, and no one was stopping me, Verna. It was me. But I'm so glad that I took this opportunity, and it's like I've gotten amazing feedback, and you know, anytime I reach out to someone, it's always like, oh, like it's awesome that you think highly of me enough. More like I look at a lot of people in my life, friends or acquaintances. I'm like, man, you're doing something in your life that I admire, and just your ability to travel and just a share your story and b kind of have it resonate to your everyday life where you can share it. That's like I look up to that, and like I don't take that lightly. So like every guest I have on, I learn like so much more. Just not just about them, but also myself. It's like, man, am I doing those things? And to kind of go back to jujitsu, how this all ties. Like sometimes when we're teaching students techniques or a principle or a concept, it's kind of a gut check. Like, okay, well, I just told this student to do X, Y, Z, in their own, maybe their own personal life are kind of at it, but am I doing that? I don't know.
Well,
It's
I think that it's really cool that you did start the podcast because I remember you talking about it in the past in a
yeah,
conversation at some point, and then you reached out to me and you're like, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you did it. I'm super proud."
yeah,
Um, I'm really proud of you for just, conquering that fear. And it's true. You, I'm sure that most of us know so many people with stories worth telling, and connection is so important. Connection with other human beings and being able to learn from people, especially people who, you know, don't know for sure if what they have is going to help someone.
yeah,
Um, it's not, I guess it's not really about is what I have going to help someone, but the fact that you have the courage to try, you're overcoming fear, and it's a bid for human connection, which ultimately we're all searching for that.
yeah,
And all of those things are a win. So,
absolutely.
yeah, good job.
Thank you. And no, like amazing job to you as well. And man, this was awesome. It was a fast hour, like I knew it would that it would be. But is there anything so like I always give my, guests the chance to do this at the end of each of their and I'm sorry, the end of each episode, but is there anyone that you want to give thanks to? So I always try to live in the state of gratitude, but is there someone out there or are there groups of people that you want to thank for the opportunities that you've been given? Like anyone that come
Absolutely.
to mind?
Of course. First, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Thank you
and
for
my
coming on.
family, my parents, my five siblings, huge thanks to them. Um, and everyone who helped me on my trip to Thailand. People did donate and help me because we had to take all of our own teaching supplies. So people donated, funds to help me pay the program fee and all of those things. So huge shout out and thank you for helping me be able to have that experience.
Yeah.
Um, and a huge thanks to everyone at my jiu-jitsu school, Jake and Melissa Johnston, and everything they've done for me. They've really been there for me in my life a lot, and all the training partners, um, everybody there who just like supports me, and all the friends I've made. A special shout out to my friend Marty that I've made from there. She's really special. If anybody listening to this knows her, they'll agree.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess the biggest shout out goes to Susie, my best friend, who no matter what I go through in my life, she is there. She pushes me. She's the hardest spar, and she is. I'm really grateful for her. No matter where I'm at, what I'm doing, she's always has had my back, and I know she always will. So I'm really, really grateful for her. And yeah, just grateful for life, and the point of, existence is experience and
Yeah.
trying to not shy away from them. So
That's amazing. Well, Verna, thank you so much for being on today's episode
thanks for having me.
of the Kumite lifestyle. We had a chance to dive into your jiu-jitsu journey and like why you got started. And you mentioned a lot of good points just about, human connection and, especially the teaching side, because there's teaching and then there's the student, two different roles, but they all kind of intertwine, of course.
Mm,
And the biggest thing that I hope that, the viewers got from that, and you said it the best, if you're teaching, you know, with your head instructor, like learn as much as you can, but don't be afraid to teach in, with them because that's the only way that you're going to get better. And then of course your travels. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from you was just going for it. And I love how you said that if it's something that you fear or if it's something that scares you, it's probably something that you should be doing. And I've learned in life that if it scares you, that means like it's going to challenge you because like if you weren't scared or didn't have any type of not being like overly scared, of course, or fearful, but like in Thailand, then it's almost like what was the point of even going if you couldn't like experience those emotions?
yeah, if there's no fear, then it means you don't care. If it's something you care about, you'll fear failure if you try.
That's such a great point. I love it. Actually, one last thing. Where can the viewers find you? Do you have like what's your social media? Like if you're
Mm.
willing to share that, how could a viewer find you if they wanted to know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mainly. I don't really um, post anything anywhere else. Try to stay off as much as possible, even though, the algorithm gets the best of all of us. But
Absolutely.
it's Verna D80 on Instagram. Um, and yeah, just mostly lots of travel photos and adventures. I live in southern Utah, so there's a lot of adventures in my backyard. So it looks like I travel more than I do, but most of these fun things are pretty close to home. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Well, again, thank you so much for being on, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.